All right, there we go. Hopefully that has everything working. All right, welcome to what I thought was going to be a Combat Styles live stream. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like the Public Test Center is available, so I want to start by talking about that from kind of a game development standpoint. If you're in the chat, make sure to let me know if audio sounds okay. I haven't live streamed in quite a while, actually. So let's go ahead and jump over to some of the slides from the actual live stream that took place from Star Wars The Old Republic. This was the plan. So, last week when they did this live stream, they talked about on Public Test Center, the Jedi Guardian version of the new Combat Styles was going to go live. I've been refreshing the Test Center all morning, just trying to get in, and unfortunately it patched. There was a big patch and they've updated the client, it looks like, but they haven't put the character copy stuff up and they haven't put the actual live server. So maybe it'll go live later today. I was hoping if I started by noon, it would actually be up and running and I'd have a chance to do it. But unfortunately, that has not happened. But I did still want to live stream and kind of talk about this system and then speculate. And then I've got the live client actually pulled up where we can look at some of the stuff that's going on. So if you look at what they talked about during the live stream in Combat Styles, what my understanding, and I do not work for the Old Republic. I teach game development, and this is kind of what I love to do. So I'm going to analyze this from that perspective. So the number one thing I think is encapsulated in this first point, separating class story from gameplay. And what this means to me is, let's go forward here a little bit. Right now, this is a slide they showed on how your advanced classes work. So if you choose Jedi Knight, then you can choose an advanced class, either Jedi Guardian or Jedi Sentinel. And then each of those advanced classes have three specializations in them, right? I play Commando a lot, but every single one of these has three specializations. Right now, if you choose Jedi Knight, Jedi Guardian, you cannot change that. That's locked in. You can change your three specializations. What I'm hoping this means is the class story will be locked to this choice. So whichever main class you choose will be your class story. But the nice part about that from there on out is once that choice is made, the gameplay actually gets separated. And so we'll talk through that a little bit, and then I'll pull up some of the interface in the old client, and we'll see if we can speculate what that might be. So that kind of changes the advanced class stuff. We'll talk about this a little bit, the dark and light requirements. And then this is probably the most exciting thing I'm happy about. The ability to switch between presets quickly, called Loadouts. And right now, when they talked about this, and Charles actually said this in the live stream, he actually says, when you switch, here's how loadouts work. So this seems like something you will be able to actually do as many times as you want. Kind of like you change your specializations now. It sounds like loadouts are going to allow us to change all that. Not only can we change it, but your gear, your interface, your abilities, your utilities, how your character looks, all of that will be saved. So at the push of a button, you'll be able to switch all that. If they had that now, it would be nice. Like on my Commando, if I go from DPS to the MedTech, I have to rearrange my toolbar. I have to re-gear myself. I have to reset my utilities. Now that'll all be at the push of a button. All right, so let's kind of talk through what they say this will be like. So this is the other slide they showed in the live stream, and you'll notice that the boxes change, right? Right now, you choose Jedi Knight, you choose one of these, and then you can kind of change your specializations. What they are saying is, okay, you choose your class story. So I'm going to choose Bounty Hunter over here first. On the tech side, I can choose from all 8 of these advanced classes. So I can be a bounty hunter gunslinger, I could be a bounty hunter sniper, I could be a bounty hunter vanguard if I wanted to be. And then I would guess, and they didn't really clarify this, the advanced classes would also be available off of those. So whether you're bounty hunter, imperial agent, smuggler, or trooper, you can change every single one of these advanced classes as much as you want. Now, given the way that past systems have worked, like to be able to field specialize and change your advanced class focus, you actually have to either go to fleet or there's a legacy perk or a character perk. I can't remember which one it is. Let's jump over there real quick. In the interface here, let's see if it's in character perks. So yeah, it's right there. So if you click this field specialization, what this allows you to do is anytime in the game, you can just change. So if I come in here and I say, I don't want to be this anymore, I can abandon my tank class, my defensive class, and I can switch between those. And that's currently in the game. So that's actually how it works right now. What I'm hoping is this interface then turns into something like that. And we'll talk about that in a minute. The other side, so any of these can be any of these. Now, you can't be a trooper juggernaut. The force specializations and the tech specializations are in separate categories. What they've said over here is it works similarly, but if you actually look at the slide, let's go back to this. There's this line right here. Force classes will have dark light requirements to access their counterparts. So the way I read into that is if I pick Sith Warrior and I'm a light Sith Warrior, I can pick any of these four. Now, remember in the Old Republic, what's over here is essentially the same class. They're mirrors of each other. They have the same abilities with different animations, so the Jedi Sage throws rocks, the Sith side, shoots lightning, but it's essentially the same class. So if I'm a Sith Warrior and I'm light, I can choose any of these. If I'm a Jedi Knight and I'm light, I can choose any of these. And then vice versa, if I'm a Sith Warrior and dark, I can choose any of these. So these would have access to 4 as opposed to all 8. You technically would have access to all 8. You just have to change your alignment. So I can be a Jedi Counselor Marauder, right? Or I can be a Jedi Knight, Jedi Sentinel. So that's my understanding of how the current system is going to work. Now, there's a lot going on because another thing that Charles said in the live stream is must go like asked, so I can be a Sith Warrior or no, I can be a Jedi Knight that shoots lightning. And he said, yes, eventually. And so what that sounds like is they're going to have to do something at character creation. You start out. So do you maybe not start out with an advanced class? I don't know. I don't have an answer for that one. But the fact that he said eventually means with that alignment thing, maybe you have to get to Dark 1 or Light 1 in order to access those. Now, will they do something similar over here? I don't know. There's currently no mechanism for that. So that is the system as I understand it. My hopes for the system is it basically works kind of like the existing one. So let's pop back over to the client. So, now they've also said they're going to be doing a lot of UI updates, which is exciting. This is a 10-year-old game, and so things are getting a little bit old. So things I would like to see, there's going to be some kind of interface like this where I'm going to have a listing of what I can and can't change into if I actually am allowed to abandon or do stuff like that. Let me close that up real quick. So the other thing that they said is it's going to have changes to your character sheet here. They're doing a major update on this. One thing that they said is there's going to be some UI updates that actually happen during the expansion launch, and then throughout 2022 they're going to be updating a lot of UI. So let's start to speculate. So at this point, I don't know what they may or may not be doing, and so I can only go off of existing and past experience. So I have been playing Old Republic since beta, so I'm 10 years in, so I have seen quite a bit of stuff going on. Let's turn the sound back on. There we go. So if we kind of look at this thing here, we've talked about the advanced class availability. We talked about the dark and light. So let's talk about this loadouts. I think this is outside of just the core of how this is going to work. This is probably the most exciting part of how this new system is going to work. So if you look at the current game right now, I am a Jedi Knight, and this is a Guardian. That's my specialization. And if you look through the skill sets here, you're going to see there are different skills that are now associated with just Guardian. So if I go and look at this, Vigilance spec, this has a completely different set of skills. Now, currently, what will happen is once you actually go in here and make that change, anywhere you have a Guardian skill is going to get removed from your toolbar. Any skill that's the same between them will stay, and any skill that's new is going to go into the first available slot. My interface is by far not the normal interface, so let's jump over here. This is going to make an absolute mess, but let's go to the default interface. So if I had this one right here, this would be the first available spot. It would just dump the first skill it can find in there. If you don't have any spots open, it's just going to not put them on. And now you have to go in. You're going to come in here and you're going to say wrong key. There we go. You're going to find your ability. You're going to find Vigilance. You're going to scroll through here. You're going to find it. You're going to drag it out here onto the toolbar. And that switch takes a while. So let me go back to my other interface because I have a lot more toolbars opened on that one. So I can do that. What I'm hoping for loadouts. So if we look at loadouts, they actually say gear, abilities and utilities, outfitter profiles. This one's interesting. I don't know what they're going to do with that. So let's start with the first two. The first one is gear. So right now, if I want to have a set of gear, I have one place I can put my gear. This is the gear I'm actually wearing. You may recognize this if you've done any of the 306 leveling Onderon stuff. The outfitter stuff is this stuff. This allows me to switch between, if I want to look like this for a while, I can switch that. Now you'll notice that my character, changes his view, but the actual gear I'm wearing is still this. This is where I get my stats. And this is what will become important, this is the gear. Now for this gear, you're going to notice that I have a lot of defensive gear because this is a tank character. Well, if I go and switch my class, right? So this would be any advanced class now. So if I want to go over with my tank and for whatever reason I'm in a raid and we go to a boss that only needs one tank and there's hey, we need some extra DPS. Well, right now I could actually go to a DPS Guardian. That exists. That's what we were just looking at. So if I pop back over here, I could say, okay, I'm going to go to Vigilance or I'm going to go to Focus. Then I would have to sit and redo all my utilities. I'd have to change out my gear. Hopefully I've got my gear in my inventory or I drop a droid to pull out my gear. I set that all up and that's going to take some time. It's not seamless. So hopefully changing out will be easier. So I can activate any of these outfits. Okay, so let's go back to the slide. So the first thing is gear. My hope is when you pick a loadout, you actually pick your gear. Now, the big question for me on that one is where is that gear going to be stored? So I like to collect things. I'm a collector in this game. So right now, I'll open up my legacy box here. I've got legacy tabs just full of gear, right? Like different gear for different characters, different things. These are all the same sets of gear. I hope that I don't have to have every single different gear set in here and have to pull it out and put it back. So my question right now is when I click my loadout button, I say go over to sniper, right? Whatever one the sniper I want to run. How is it going to pull that gear and essentially put it here, put it on this tab? So again, pure speculation here. I'm hoping there is going to be some kind of a gear storage system. So if you look at currently, they made this change a while ago. It used to be that all of these materials you had to actually have stored in your storage boxes, your cargo holds. Now there is a legacy-wide, every single material that can go in here is stored here. I would love to see a system where all my gear is stored this way and a character can essentially check out a set of gear. So when I hit my loadout buttons, it pulls that gear. Another area that you could use for inspiration would be, something like this, right? So this is the decoration system. And in here, it tells me I have one of these decorations. Now I have multiple strongholds, so if I place this decoration here, you're going to notice it says, okay, you have 0 left. I think it would be really cool for the gear system to kind of work like this, where I've got a piece of gear or a gear set or however they're going to do it, and I've got my sniper gear set. And I can basically say, okay, I'm going to check out that gear set, so much like place, so it's no longer available. I can't use one set of gear on 18 characters all at the same time. But when I'm done, I can change my gear back to my Guardian tank set, and now this gear set becomes available. Now, again, I have no inside information on that. I'm just speculating on what I would like to see. So that's kind of the gear. Now, gear is the actual pieces that you wear, the weapons that you're carrying, and your implants, an earpiece, and your 2 relics. For some classes, this is going to be the same, right? Like a DPS set of gear tends to be the same unless you really want to specialize it. Okay, so let's go to the next thing on that slide, which talks about abilities and utilities. I kind of hit on that already in that if I have to respec, I have to move stuff around on my toolbars. So if this works the way I hope, what I'll be able to do is hit my loadout button, wherever it is on the screen, and it will remap all of this. I tend to be a little bit, I like to have order in my play. And so what I've done is I have spreadsheets that have all of these skills and how I lay out my toolbars basically set for me. So if I do ever have to change, I can pull up that spreadsheet and I can say, okay, this skill goes here, this skill goes here, this skill goes here. Because a lot of time when I'm playing, I don't think about I'm doing the Guardian slash. I think about I'm hitting number 3. And I have my rotation down to where I'm hitting certain keys in certain orders in a certain pattern. And so I'll forget what I have there. But I do map that out. Also, if I'm creating a new character, I'll do that. Like if I get this skill, I don't put it over here on 2. I put it on 5. That's where it belongs. And I'll have blank slots and stuff like that. So if the gear system and the ability system allow us to do that, that's a huge change. At the click of a button to be able to essentially remap your toolbars. Now, what's interesting here is could I have different Guardian loadouts, right? Where I don't change the gear, but I just change my toolbars. Maybe I have a PvP set and I have a PvE set. And that could be really, really exciting. Like if I can say, okay, I'm going into PvP, I don't use this skill in PvP, I use it in PvE. That would be awesome, to be able to just essentially remap your toolbars. Now, is there precedent for this? A little bit. A while ago, they actually added this ability. So over here, you can actually save out your key bindings. And so what I can do is when I create a new character, I come in here, I click on this and I apply it. It remaps all my key bindings because I've got mine in odd orders and different things like that. And so there is precedent for that to actually happen as well. Okay, so if that works, we'll be happy. Then the other part of that, utilities, that's the panel that we pulled up here. I would assume it kind of works the same way. If they save these, and that's what it sounds like they're going to do. Again, I have a spreadsheet where I write down and store which of these utilities that I use in which situations. So I have a PvP set, I've got a PvE set, I've got, sets for if I'm going to go solo content, I've got sets if I'm going to go raid, because you need different sometimes bonuses and depending on the content that you want to do. So with a loadout, if I can essentially click, okay, give me the focus loadout, it resets all of these utilities, it resets all of these toolbars, it comes in here, it loads up the correct set of gear. Now think about this. I'm on a raid, we're going to the second boss, and we say, hey, we need more DPS, we only need 1 tank on this. I come up here, I click a button, I'm ready to go. All of my stuff is set up. Really, the only thing that I would have to do is potentially get different stims or adrenals or, anything like that. I don't foresee those being part of this loadout system. But beyond that, I'm kind of good to go. Okay, let's pop back over here. The outfitter profiles. This one I'm not 100% sure. So the closest thing I can find, or what I look at is essentially these. These are the outfit designers. So you can unlock these tabs and you can have 16 different outfits. And these are cosmetic only. So they don't do anything. They just change the way your character looks. So if you're doing it for role playing or just, I don't want to run around in this armor, right? This look. And so I can turn this outfit on, click activate, and now I look like this. Are they going to have a whole set of tabs for each loadout? Because like, you know, as a tank, maybe I want this bloody armor. But as a DPS, maybe I want to go with this, which is absolutely separate from the gear that I'm wearing. I'm not sure on that one. That one could go in many different directions. Okay, so my list of things I was going to dig into. My goal was to hit Test Center and go through this. So the announcement basically said that they were going to upload just the Jedi Guardian. So that's why I pulled up my Jedi Guardian on Test Center and let us play with a limited version of the new system. That's kind of what they said in the live stream. And so what I was hoping to do is look for different things. First thing, this is all linked to the Legacy of the Sith expansion, which isn't going to come out until probably right around Christmas. They say holiday of this year. So none of this is going to go live for a while. I went ahead and showed you the before and afters of the systems. The class and the story are being separated. So let's talk about that just a little bit more. Hopefully I made that clear. So my understanding is whatever main class you choose, that's the story you're going to follow in the game. But beyond that, you can pick anything for the style of gameplay that you like. So if you kind of like to go into, you know, a stealth version, you could stealth out your trooper if you want, which, you know, there's no trooper class that can actually do stealth. If you want to have more of a go into cover play style, you can get into the smuggler stuff or whatever it happens to be. So the advanced class is linked directly to gameplay. The actual class is linked to your story. The loadout stuff, for me, even without this kind of changing, you know, because I have one character of every single one of these advanced classes. If I want to play that style, I can play that style. I do tend to play on a few mains, but for the most part, I can play whatever style I want. But now if I have a main and I just want to switch over, I can do that. Okay, they talk about improved player experience, new UI. I think that's the stuff that I mostly wanted to explore. So my plan was I was going to jump on Test Center. I was going to go ahead and make a new character because character creation now is going to change. You know, if you look at character creation, let's jump over there. We'll bounce out here a little bit. Show you guys all my character names, which hopefully is not detrimental. So if I'm at character creation, so I come in here, I say create new character, and it opens up this interface. Now, I don't think this necessarily, now they might change stuff for aesthetics, but essentially you're still going to pick, you know, I'm going to pick Republic, I'm going to pick Empire, so we'll pick the Republic side. So right now, the way the interface works is I essentially pick my advanced class right here. This is probably going to be the first change. If I'm still going to pick a class, but I'm going to pick Knight, Counselor, Smuggler, or Trooper. So again, they said Jedi Guardian. Hopefully they meant Jedi Knight. I'm not sure about that, but that's what's going to be on Test Center. Now things are going to have to change. So the question is, you know, is there a step now of, okay, I've picked my main class for story. What's my advanced class? Maybe at character creation you don't select an advanced class. Maybe you do. I don't know. But I'm a neutral Jedi right now. I don't know how I can pick a light side or a dark side. Then you go through. I don't think this will change a lot. You can pick whatever race you want to be. Pick your gender. Do your character customization. So I don't know how much of that's going to change. But really, it's the step of when you pick your class. You know, that is probably going to be different just because now you're not going to have these advanced classes. So let's jump back out of that. So that was the first thing I wanted to look at. The second thing then I was going to look at is once you're into a character, how does the change work? I so hope that they're actually putting the loadout part on the test center, because that's what I think really people want to know. The concept of pick whatever advanced class you want, it's cool, and that's what we want to do. But okay, you know, that's not that different than doing this, right? It's like it's a wider version of this system. I can pick whatever, you know, proficiency that I want here. Now this is just going to be more robust. So how does that work? So how does the loadouts work? And that's about all the information we have right now. Like I said, I was really hoping that the test center would be up and running. So what we're going to do is, the last thing they announced is not necessarily linked to this directly, is they're going to add 5 more levels. So there's a new story, there's new levels and all that kind of stuff. So let's do this. If you have any questions, go ahead and throw those in the chat. Let's refresh and see. Have they updated anything on the Public Test Center forum? I don't see any new posts over there. I don't know if it's going to show up on the server status. I don't show anything there. So let's go ahead and we'll just jump out here and jump back into the game. Not sure if I should be showing you guys all of this information, but that's all right. And we will see if Test Center is up and running or not. So if you don't use the security key is an app or there's a little key fob that comes with the version that was the collector's edition. And what it does is every 60 seconds, it gives you a new number that secures your account. So less chance of your account getting compromised. Okay. So cross your fingers. We will see if anything pops up. Unfortunately, you know, and so I did want to talk about that from a developer standpoint. So in the live stream last week, they actually did say, our goal is we hope to get the test center up and running. I was actually surprised when they said July 5th. Being in the Americas, that's day after 4th of July. So it's kind of a holiday. So yeah, here's the public test center. Like I said, my client patched over the weekend. I'm not sure when they pushed it, but there was a big download. It's 4 or 5 gigabytes of stuff, and it patched up and allows me to log into here, but the public test center is not available. It says the server is offline. So I was actually surprised in the live stream when they said July 5th, being a day after the holiday, and a lot of companies, you know, especially bankers and schools, tend to observe the 4th of July on Monday. So a lot of people are off work, which actually does make a little bit of sense because you'd have a lot of people that may want to play the game. But this is the current status. Traditionally, about 4 o'clock in the morning Pacific time is when things tend to go live. So I was really hoping it would have went live this morning. The fact that it didn't does give me a little bit of no hope that it's going to actually hit today. So speaking from the game development side, as a player, it's disappointing. I actually wanted to get in, dig into the systems. It's one of my most favorite things to do is just to see how a system works and break down a game system. As a developer, I would rather not push something live if there is an issue or you can't support it or different things like that. So this is currently the situation that we are in, just kind of waiting for it to happen. So my goal will be at whatever time the test center goes live, either to do a different live screen or just go in and make a video on everything that I was going to do today. In order to kind of look at how this system works. All right, let's get back in here. So that is all the information that I have. Go ahead and throw it out to any questions, either about this system or the live game at this point. I would be happy to answer any of those. All right, the long, awkward pause of silence. All right, we'll jump back in here and just kind of do a recap here and probably call this stream good based off the no availability of the test center. If you want to get the full information, Star Wars The Old Republic is pushing the YouTube and the Twitch link out for the live stream. It is, let me look here.
Hi everyone, I'm Keith Koenig and I'm
40, looks like 43 minutes long for the full live stream. The first 11 minutes of that are different people talking about the 10th anniversary. So at about the 12 minute mark, it actually kicks into the conversation about the expansion. The Combat Styles is just one section of that expansion. Okay, so looking at my notes here, let's do a quick recap. So Combat Styles was the big thing we were going to cover. Loadouts, I think, is the biggest thing. Oh, let's talk about this a little bit. Class balance changes. That's going to happen in any expansion. When you add levels and add skills and add abilities, that's always going to happen. I was talking to somebody the other day and they were like, this is going to be crazy. This is absolutely going to break everything in the game. It's going to be impossible to balance. How are you going to get all these classes working together? And my current response on that, without being able to look at it, is it's not going to make that big of a difference. Because when you choose your class, your advanced class, those are the same advanced classes we've been playing with. So the balance shouldn't change. Now, a question that I think is legitimate is how are they going to divide these skills up? So currently, I have two categories for my skills. I've got my Jedi Knight skills, right? These are skills that are linked to Jedi Knight. Now, most of these are passive bonuses. Some of them are actual skills. I could see this going away because from a balance standpoint, a worry I would have is, does a Jedi Knight sniper have some passive skill that gives them a bonus? So for instance, a Jedi Knight has, I don't know if it's passive on the Jedi Knight side or the Guardian side. Okay, so here's what so if we look at this, Jedi Knight has a passive skill for medium armor, right? Some characters can wear light armor, some wear medium, some wear heavy. My Guardian adds a heavy armor passive skill, so they can actually tank and wear heavy armor. This doesn't seem like it would work really well based off of how they're going to do this. So for instance, do these skills, those skills are Jedi Knight wide. So any proficiency, any advanced class can have them. If I was able to keep Blade Blitz, but then pick the sniper stuff, that would be difficult to balance because now you've got so many different builds. You've got, every advanced class linked to every base class. So the first thing I think you're going to see as a change is if there are abilities at this level, they're going to be very stripped down. I think you'll see a lot of these skills. Now, so take Blade Barrage. Blade Barrage will be in the Jedi Guardian. It will be in the, let's pop back over to the slide. It'll be in Jedi Guardian. It'll be in Jedi Sentinel. And so you might see some duplication that way. But if they don't do that, I would worry about class balance because balancing that out, the more variables you put into the system, the worse it's going to get. Now, barring that, as long as this change, so maybe there isn't even this, or maybe it's just we're going to put in stuff like here. Every character gets sprint, right? So that's something every character. So I think the base class skills might be much more limited. And then this will get buffed out. You'll see a lot more of the skills that go in here. So I'm not overly worried about class balance changes yet. But if they do it where you do get to keep some of these type of skills, like here's a defensive skill that allows me to absorb damage. Is that, if you start to play the meta game of how classes work, stacking my Jedi Knight versus my, Sith Inquisitor base skills to an advanced class could get really, really nasty. So crossing my fingers they don't do that. The other speculation, which I don't think is true, is you'd be able to just pick whatever skills from whatever class you want. And I really don't see that happening. I really see it being based off of the graphic and how they talked about it, you know, very much like this. If you are a bounty hunter, you pick one of these and it's a package that's delivered to you of here are all the mercenary skills or here are all the scoundrel skills. And I really, really hope it's that way. Otherwise, it would become very impossible to balance. If any of you played Star Wars Galaxies back in the day, the original system was like that. You could actually pick different skill boxes. They were in these skill trees out of all these different classes, and the balance was just all over the place. And that's why when they updated the game, they actually changed it to a level-based, class-based system to make it far easier to balance. So that's kind of where I think it's going to land. I don't think it's going to be, I want to pick one skill from Vanguard, one skill from over here from Operative, and a couple skills from Gunslinger. I don't think it'll be that open. I'm pretty sure it's going to be the pick a advanced class and you get the whole package. All right. Is there anything else on the slides that we need to talk about? I think that hits everything. So again, this is directly from the video. If you want to go watch the live stream either on Twitch or on YouTube, it's up on Star Wars' page. This is a question mark. How are they going to do this dark versus light? Because that affects the Force users. Expanding availability makes a lot of sense. For me, as a player, any customization that makes my life easier, this loadouts thing is probably the thing I am most excited for. Okay. That being said, thank you, anybody who stuck around and watched this live stream. A little disappointed that we didn't get to actually see the system. As soon as the system goes live, I will go through it with this kind of detail and analysis, kind of dig through and say, okay, here's how it's currently working. Another caveat to that is make sure that when you go in and look at stuff, especially on a test server, none of that is final. It could actually change. And so, you know, we'll look at it as it exists, but that is one of the exciting things about a test server is it allows them to collect feedback from the player base as well and kind of see where things are going. I remember way back in the day when I played beta for World of Warcraft. I ran my Paladin before they had even put, I think they're called talents over there. I haven't played World of Warcraft for a long time. There was no talents in yet, right? And that obviously wasn't the final version, but that is how it was at that time on the test server. With that being said, I think we're going to go ahead and call it. My latest video series has been defining gaming terms. So if you're looking for a reference, they're 1 minute long YouTube Shorts videos that I just pick a term each day and upload a video on that term. I'd appreciate anybody who decides to check that out. If you have any terms that you are wondering about, go ahead and send them my way either via social media or YouTube, and I will bump them up on the list. I've got a list right now for everything through the end of the year and a back list of about 1,500 terms that I'm going to define eventually. But I would be happy to actually put ones in front of people that want to see them. All right. Thanks for watching. Barring any questions, I think I'm going to go ahead and sign off, madly refresh the test center throughout the day and hope that this gets up and running so we can take a look at it. All right. See you guys next time.